This is the Sequential Rev 2. This is the 16 voice version. It's bi-timbral, meaning you get two synths inside one box. You switch between the layers via these buttons here. Before I give you a few demonstrations, I'm going to run you through it from left to right. Next to the modulation wheels and the pitch wheels, we've got a master volume, and underneath that we've got a glide and a rate control. The glide and the rate will basically give you a longer slide for pitch bends and stuff like that. So I'll give you a quick demonstration of that. Hold down the down and the hold button, and that will create an initialized patch. So that's down and hold. And now that's just giving me a sawtooth on oscillator 1. By switching the glide on and turning it all the way to the left, there will be no glide. Turning it to the right, will give you the longest glide there is. Underneath that we've got a unison button, and what that will do is stack all of the voices on top of each other. This is a 16 voice one, so it will stack all 16 voices on. Okay, so moving on, modulation area. There are eight modulation slots here, and it's just as easy as holding a source, choosing the source, and then holding the destination and choosing that, and then dialing in the amount for that. And I've just routed LFO1 to the filter cutoff. Also in the modulation area, you can set your other controllers and stuff like that. So if you've got a foot controller or any other breath controllers, pressure is your aftertouch. So if you wanted to assign aftertouch to something, you would assign that in there, and the modulation will set that up and stuff like that. So moving on, we've got the divisions for the sequencer and the arpeggiator. So if I turn on the arp, obviously this is a BPM, which will become inoperative if you sync to a DAW or another MIDI host. And then we've got our divisions: half steps, 16s, swings, triplets. Underneath that we've got your octaves, which goes up to 3 octaves in the range. We've got the way it's going to cycle with the arpeggiator, so that up and down. We've got random, assign, which is the order that you play them in. And there's a down and an up. Now it's got two types of sequence on here. It's got a polyphonic sequencer, which obviously you can record monophonic notes into it as well. And it's got a gated sequencer, which is like a modulation sequencer, which will record areas of various parameters from the frequency, or for the envelopes, or other bits where you can kind of create rhythmic patches with. But I'm going to go into that a little bit further on later on in the video when I do some demonstrations. But to use the polyphonic sequencer, it really is as simple as clicking on record, enter a note in, according, and you'll see the screen jump by 3 because each single note has got its own track. And this is how it's recorded. So you won't be getting one track with a chord on it, you're going to be getting one track with a note on it, then another track with a note, and so 3 tracks will make up the chord. To add a rest in, click on the rest button here. So let's add 2 rests, and now there's a tie button underneath that, and this is how you can kind of get the rhythms. Now to play that in a musical context, you have to hold this record button down, which is a bit of a pain. But so I'll show you how that works. You click on play, and then hold the record button with one hand. So, you know, it's a bit of an awkward place for that to be, really. But that's how you change it like that. For the gated sequencer, again, I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on, because there's a destination button here that we can affect the parameters for what we're going to actually be using for the gated sequencer. Moving on with the oscillator section, it's got 2 oscillators, but times 2 again, because there's another 2 on the B section, so you've got 4 oscillators in the actual synthesizer. But on the front panel there's 2. Sawtooth, saw and triangle, triangle and pulse. These are modulatable by using the shape knob, and you can bend between the shapes to get different sounds. There's a sub oscillator which acts 1 octave underneath oscillator 1, and there's the mix control for oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. There's a noise generator, and underneath that there's oscillator slot. Kind of, you know, detune the oscillators as it goes along. Next to that we've got the filter section, which is a Curtis filter, self-resonant low pass filter with 2 and 4 pole. The 4 pole option is self-resonant. And you've got a delay with that, so along with your attack, decay, sustain and release, there's a delay which is nice to bring the so you can kind of get those delayed effects by moving the envelope along, which is nice. Above that we've got the audio mod, which will basically create like a modulation of the filter frequency, and the filter frequency will be modulated by oscillator 1. So when you turn this audio modulation up, that will create that kind of routing for that and give you, and that's controlled, the point is controlled by the filter cutoff for that. Okay, so moving on, we've got the amplitude area with attack, decay, sustain and release. There's a pan spread. Which if you've got stereo headphones on, you can hear that, making it more stereo. Envelope amount is obviously how much we're going to send into the amplitude envelope, and velocity the same. And again we've got a delay again, which will give you that delay when it comes in. Above that we've got the auxiliary envelope with attack, decay, sustain and release. Envelope amount is exactly the same as the amplitude envelope, but we've got a destination knob on this one, and that is where we can choose which destination we want to assign to the auxiliary envelope. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on, because you can do some interesting stuff with that. But to assign it, you use the destination knob, or you can also do it within the modulation matrix. Next to that we've got the effects section. The effects are, you know, not really good, if I'm honest with you. I don't really like to use them. I wouldn't want to use them in a recording, but they're good for getting a vibe with the sound. Standard digital delays, bucket brigade, chorus. There's a high pass filter, which isn't too bad, like a DJ kind of filter on it really. But yeah, not that impressive effects, but they are what they are. And this is the area where we select between the A and B part of the synthesizer. Now we can split layer A and layer B, or we can stack them across the keyboard completely, so both A and B layers are playing on one note. So to edit the individual layers, we work on one layer at a time. So now this is layer A. And if I want to work on layer B, you can flick between them with this button. Okay, there's also a compare button, so when you're working on an individual sound, you know, you can compare where it was like before you made the adjustment, and that's good for, you know, when you're kind of making sounds. Okay guys, so we're going to look at the miscellaneous parameters now, or parameters, depending on where you're from. We've got a split point, which basically allows you to choose whereabouts on the keyboard you want to do the split for the A and B voice when using the split option. We have got layer A, VCA level, envelope repeat on and off, which will basically, when turned on, will loop your auxiliary envelope to turn it into LFO type effects. Key mode, this is where you can choose between low, high and last. When playing monophonically, it will choose which note you want to play to come through for the monophonic sound. Unison Detune, this goes up to 16 voices on mine. If you have an 8 voice, yours will go up to 8, and you can detune the voices depending on how many you select in the Unison mode. Oscillator 1 note reset and oscillator note reset on oscillator 2 are exactly the same, and they'll basically reset the oscillator every time you play it from the beginning. So it's great for when using making percussive sounds and sounds you want to be snappy and punchy. Alright guys, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the sequencer now. I'm going to start off with the gated sequencer. And what the gated sequencer is, it's a modulation sequencer, so it will affect pitch, frequency, cut-off points along a kind of a timeline on the sequencer. So to access it, we literally push on one of the buttons here on the gated one and click on mode. When you click on the mode button, you'll see it says sequencer mode is normal. That can be changed to no reset, gated, key step, and each one of those will do something differently the way that the sequencer is transmitted. So when you're using no gate, it will just literally play the modulation sequence without any gated note information at all. If we put it onto normal, it will allow everything you've programmed in with a modulation on it. So to access each part of the sequence, we click on this mode button here and then click on destination. So sequence 1 at the moment is the envelope all amount. We can change this by using the value knob here, and you can literally choose absolutely anything you want to be sequenced there. This is sequencing the cutoff. And to get into the sequencer, you move to the track knob here. It's a bit cumbersome, and you've got sequence 1, sequence 2 and sequence 3, and you can see what they're assigned to. So sequence 1 now is assigned to the cutoff, Sequence 2 is assigned to the resonance. Sequence 3 is assigned to the oscillator slot. Sequence 4 is assigned to the low pass filter decay. And so that's your 4 tracks of sequence modulation. And so to choose to edit the actual sequence, we use this track knob. So to edit sequence card 1, we then go to the value and we go to the parameter or parameter dial above, and this is where we choose the step. So step 1, it's got a value of 42, so I can change that to say 30. Step 2 has got no value, I'll turn that up. Step 3 is 39. Step 4, to play arpeggios and stuff like that on it, you just assign the sequence to the frequency all option. So when you're going into destination, you choose oscillator 1, oscillator 2, or you can choose oscillator all. When you choose oscillator all, it will affect both oscillators, or you can make a different melody with each one. So the polyphonic sequencer basically allows you to record in polyphonic chords. And the way it works is you click on the record, and you've now armed it ready to go into record mode. You've got rests and you've got ties. So to create your rhythm, first decide what beat divisions you're going to be requiring. So let's record in a sequence. Click on record. Now to add a rest in straight away when starting it, hit record and then start off with the rest. So you could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hit play. Now to transpose your sequence when you've done it, you literally hold the record button and press the note that you want to transpose it down to. Not a great place for that to be, that button, to be fair. It's a little bit awkward. That's Unison Mode. Taking that off will enable you to play chords with the same patch, which immediately gives it a different flavour. So if you're going for 2 sections in a song, just by turning up your cut-off frequency and adding the unison, you've got another sound straight away. kind of get those metallic-y. Metallic-y sounds with that.